Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne here with you on this Thursday morning edition of Sidelines. A lot to talk about here. We'll be joined in just a moment by Mark Schlabach, ESPN.com. Mark also covers a lot. He's covering a lot of golf. I know that. A lot on the LIV Tour, the LIV Tour. Just got back from the PGA Championship where Brooks Koepka won. He's going to talk about that, talk about the big picture and what's going on in college football. Second segment, we'll be joined by Gary Harris, Tide 100.9 over in Tuscaloosa, WVUA TV channel 23. Hour number 2, Coach Matt Dean over in Memphis, Rhodes College will check in with us, and AD John Hartwell from ULM will check in from Monroe, Louisiana. I know last week he was down there at the Sun Belt Conference meetings in Destin. What a great place to have your meetings. I can't pick up many better places. Again, they don't have them at the spillway, at the reservoir. You know, they just don't do it like that. But have great locations for all the meetings. But hey, we're here 6 days a week, 25 shows at least a month, 50 hours plus a month of content. Follow us on Twitter at @sidelines_live. We're talking college football, baseball, basketball, recruiting, year round. We stick to sports. That's what we do. We're a sports radio show and podcast, and that's who we are. Get started right now. Mark Schlabach. And Mark, man, you just got back from the PGA Championship up in New York. You're busy. You're all over the place. It's kind of a convergence. Yesterday, Athlons came out with their first college football preview. It's always around Memorial Day, and they got to be the first one. Of course, you know, a lot will change. I guess you got to have a website or something to keep up with all the changes, but there's some structure with the portal. But want to get started first and say thanks for joining us and talk about golf. Brooks Koepka, the LIV Tour. You and I talked the other day. That and the PGA and how you don't get ranking points when you play in those tournaments. And what's that mean long term? You think the PGA and the LIV Tour are going to work things out to make where you can get points for rankings if you're a member of a LIV?
That's going to be up to the official World Golf Ranking. They've had LIV Golf's application for recognition for about a year now. I think they officially applied at the Open at St. Andrews last year. But, you know, if they don't come to some sort of an agreement and give LIV golfers points for their finishes in LIV golf events, then we're not going to see guys like, you know, Koepka, and Koepka's pretty good because he's got exemptions from winning 2 U.S. Opens and winning 3 PGA championships now. But you know, Taylor Gooch, who's won a couple of events on the LIV golf circuit this year, isn't in the U.S. Open because they're not getting points, and he's fallen in the rankings and fell outside of the top 60. So I think there'll be some sort of a conclusion, and like everything else, it'll probably end up in court.
Just out of curiosity, the money, I mean, it is, and you and I talked, it's generational wealth. And I do that in addition to this show, manage people's wealth with my team. And if somebody offers you $50 million or $75 million to come on that tour, and you know you're making decent money on the PGA, how the hell are you going to say no?
I mean, you can't. I mean, and that's why I respect a guy like Harold Varner III, who hasn't said he's out there. He took the money to grow the game, or
yeah,
you know, he said, "Look, my grandkids and my grandkids' kids aren't going to have to worry." So I commend him for being honest about it, and I think, you know, if you look at Brooks Koepka, I think a year ago after he dislocated and shattered his kneecap in March 2021, he was really struggling, and I don't think he ever thought he'd get back to this level, and he probably has some regrets about going at this point.
Yeah. And the criticisms of like the money, I think that Saudi Trust has over $640 billion. They're never, it seems like, going to run out of money. But the PGA, compared to the LIV Tour, who's doing the best right now? I mean, the PGA, the Masters was, as always, great. What was the PGA Championship like compared to the Masters if you got to go this year?
I'd argue the Masters is the greatest sporting event on the planet. So I'm not sure that compares, but it was in Rochester, New York, lovely Rochester, which was a nice town. I'll leave it at that. Great golf course. Oak Hills, one of the iconic, traditional, old school golf courses, and they did a heck of a job on the setup and made it really difficult with the tight fairways and the hard fairways and really deep rough and crazy runoffs off the green. So it was a test for the best players in the world, but we'll see going forward. I mean, look, it was a big deal for Live Golf that Brooks Koepka won. He, for whatever reason, didn't really want to talk about what it meant for Live Golf and said he was focused on what he had done individually more than anything. If we go back to last year, I think there have been 7 major championships played since Live Golf played its first event, and PGA Tour players have won 6 and Live Golf's won 1. So, it is what it is.
But
Rob,
yeah,
I can't get over that Ham's beer sign in the back.
I had to put that up there because that's my wife's maiden name is Ham, and so one of our friends gave that to us, and so I was like, I gotta put it up there because.
Have you ever had a Ham's beer?
Oh hell yeah! That's what we started drinking when we were in middle school, high school. Back when the age was 18, we had paper driver's licenses in Tennessee, but nobody made better commercials, Mark, than Ham's, with the guy Grizzly Adams driving the open air Willis Jeep with a damn grizzly bear, and he's out there, hanging out with the grizzly bear. All the commercials were just classic. I think the people that produced Leave It to Beaver did all the commercials for him. But ham, you can get a 30 rack of hams, Mark, in Ash Flat, Arkansas, where we're going trout fishing this weekend, for $15.98. It is fine beer since 1865. It's a classic. That sign is a classic.
The worst headache I've ever had in my life was after we were at the Big Ten Media Days several years ago and went to a Cubs night and sat in the bleachers and probably drank 4 or 5 big Ham's beers, and I could not get fast enough.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's the finest of lagers, of course, but it will give you better drink. The Irish proverb is every third beer, a glass of water. So yeah, you go to a Cubs game, and I know they used to be the official beer of the Cubs, and they may still be. So it's a hell of a piece. Like to see them get a bigger profile, but so we'll turn the sign on this morning. Mark, switching to college football, I looked at that Athlon magazine yesterday. Arkansas has 4 players on their first team. KJ Jefferson's the quarterback, and you mentioned with the portal and NIL, it drives you to want to cover golf a lot more. And I agree with you. I think the portal, we're starting to see a trend here 4.5 years into it. There's some Power 5 to Power 5 movement, but it's mainly Power 5 going down to Group of 5 and Group of 5 going up to Power 5. Is it starting to remind you a lot of baseball with the farm systems, AA, AAA, single A?
Yeah, I mean, I when they approved this and gave guys unlimited transfers for the most part, I said it was just the rich getting richer and the space between the haves and the have-nots getting even wider. And I think we're seeing that now. You look at what Nick Saban and some others have done, and particularly now Lincoln Riley at USC, Mike Norvell at Florida State, completely transformed their rosters. You look at what Deion Sanders is doing at Colorado. I mean, probably 80% roster turnover. That was never the intent of the rule, but it can happen. And, my question, as it's always been, is how many of these kids are actually getting into schools and finishing their degrees. And it just seems like nobody cares about that anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the figure when the portal came out October 15th, 2018, I think there's about 45% of the kids going in there aren't getting picked up. Is it reminding you, back when you and I were in college, at the end of the year, the coaches would meet with you, and sometimes they'd say, "Hey, man, we don't have a spot on the depth chart as low as you are. I think you ought to, focus on your studies, or I can help you transfer to a Division II school." Instead of going through that shame or embarrassment a player might feel, it looks like now they're going into the portal, and it makes it look like they're, well, I'm just waiting until the right offer comes along.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it's tied to NIL. I think kids are looking for the best NIL deals. And I mean, I know, most of it's above board now, but there's still a lot of these collectives using NIL money to recruit guys to schools, which isn't supposed to be happening, but it is happening. And I just, I think the the NCAA did a really poor job of getting a handle on it in the beginning, and it's going to take congressional intervention to probably get it back between the rails.
Is it one thing for sure? We hear a lot about it with college football and basketball. Baseball, not so much. I mean, when college baseball's popularity is skyrocketing. But when you talk to coaches, without naming them, because I know the people that I've talked to, they say it's really annoying because you're in your office planning, you and your staff, and then you've got players coming in saying, this school or that school is offering me this. If I can't get it from y'all, from where I am here, I'm going to have to take that money. Is it pushing a lot of coaches out the door early?
I think some. I think some guys may look to go to the NFL, but I mean, I heard a story just a few weeks ago about a top 5 coach who was recruiting in California, 2 of the best players on his team, best young players on his team, who played his 2 freshmen. We're talking about transferring to another school, and he had to come off the road recruiting and come back and recruit his own 2 guys who were projected starters. This is a team that is top 5. So it's just, I mean, you spend as much time recruiting your own kids to stay as you do high school kids, and the way the calendar is now, I mean, there's just no downtime.
Yeah, it really. And so you look at Kirby Smart at Georgia, what he's been doing. I mean, Georgia's always had a ton of talent in the state, but now they're recruiting nationally. I mean, 3 of their best players, Brock Bowers from Napa, California, Keely Ringo, Scottsdale, Arizona, Darnell Washington, Las Vegas. You didn't used to see that with Georgia. Who really started that national recruiting, though, in the SEC? Tennessee years ago out of necessity, or was it Alabama? And you think that's a good thing?
Yeah, it was probably Tennessee. That's what I've always said. Excuse me, Tennessee and Tennessee's always been one of the most difficult jobs in the country because it's in the SEC, and back when Florida was good and Georgia was good, you're having to recruit against those guys. And Bama, same thing, doesn't have nearly the number of in-state prospects that Georgia does. But Georgia, if they wanted, could just stay in state and just recruit guys. And I think they probably are getting a little bit of flack for not taking more in-state guys, but you've seen him go out and get Brock Bowers from California, and he's getting guys out of Philadelphia, getting a lot of guys out of South Florida again. Just took a punter out of Iowa, probably the most valuable player in the entire state of Iowa when you look at what Iowa's offense punts on 3rd downs practically. But and get the quarterback Raiola out of Arizona. So yeah, it's kids on the West Coast. Kendall Milton's another one, the tailback out of California. Kids on the West Coast want to come to the SEC. They want to compete for national championships, and Lincoln Riley's going to have to do a good job of kind of putting the hammer down and keeping those guys at home.
Yeah, so that's the next question I was going to say. Looking at the Pac-12 and the Big 12, it looks to me like very likely you're going to see the Pac-12 disappear. I mean, Colorado, Utah, I think they got one foot out the door already to the Big 12. I mean, talk about them, and then Arizona State, what are they going to do? Because the media rights deal in the Pac-12 is not very good, and they can't afford to stay there.
No, I mean, I think you're going to see further realignment maybe this summer. I think the Big 12 is being really, really aggressive. I think the Pac-12's in reactionary mode, protective mode. USC and UCLA going to the Big 10 pretty much killed the league. But I could see the Big 12 scooping up Utah and Colorado, getting them to come back. I could see them grabbing Arizona State. What happens to Oregon and Washington? There was a point where maybe going to the Big 10, but I don't think the Big 10 really sees the value. So we'll have to see. But, I mean, even the ACC, I think when you start doing unequal shares in your conference, it's going to cause problems.
Yeah, that was the next one. Clemson and Florida State saying that. Are you worried about them saying, hey, we're bringing in the lion's share of the revenue for football? What about the SEC starting to do that? You think that would ever happen, or is this league, the SEC, too strong and Greg Sankey too strong of a personality to let that happen? Because you could make a case for it.
I mean, you never say never, but I just think the league is so strong, it's making so much money, they're going to continue to supplement Vanderbilt and some others. I'd be surprised, but I can understand where Clemson and Florida State are coming from, especially Clemson, Florida State to some extent, but Florida State hasn't done much in the last 20 years. And, Miami has no business with a seat at the table based on their history recently. But, you just worry it turns into the Southwest Conference in terms of the infighting and everything else, and they just eat their own.
Yeah. All right. We'll take a quick break. Got a few more questions. And when we come back, I want to get into that because conference expansion, this is the time of year when it seems to happen. Mark Schlabach, ESPN.com with us. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Mark, we were talking last, Friday. We had Coach Jackie Sherrill was on the show with us. He's actually in his boat. It was the first time we've ever had a guest in the boat up in Cutter, Arkansas on the White River trout fishing with his son. And they caught some beautiful, big brown trout on the show. And we got into talking about expansion. And he said, it's all about eyeballs. And he had said, I remind him every time he's on, back in the fall of 92 at the Touchdown Club of Memphis, at the University Club, he spoke and it was packed. There were several hundred people there. And he talked about going forward. And this was in 92 when he said this, we'd have like an NFL model, super conferences, NFC East West, AFC East West. He thinks, you'll have maybe 55 or 60 teams playing for that CFP championship. And we brought up, what about something for the other schools in the group of 5 have their own national championship? And he said, yeah, of course. And it would be just as important to them. I definitely think that's where we're going. Do you agree?
No, I've been saying that for years. I mean, Nick Saban told me that probably 10 years ago, that the top 50 to 60 teams needed to be playing each other and nobody else, and that would help with the games that nobody cares about. And would help with home schedules. But, if you're an Arkansas State, a Louisiana Monroe, a Georgia State, a Georgia Southern, I mean, you start every season with zero possibility of winning the national championship.
Yeah.
And I think if you'd ask those kids and coaches, the competitors, they would probably tell you that they would rather play for a national championship against similarly talented and resourced teams. The ADs and the presidents, however, probably don't want to give up the money. But yeah, I think that's where we're headed. And I don't think it's just the group of 5 teams. I think it could be the Dukes, Vanderbilts, Oregon State's a little better now. Northwestern. Could you see some attrition inside each conference? That's probably down the road, but it's not even semi-pro football now. It's professional football.
Yeah, it is. And like you mentioned, the SEC is so strong, but you could see in the ACC, you're talking about Duke, Syracuse, and some of these schools just see you later. I mean, because you look at the commitment that it takes to win. Not every school is willing to put that in. And then you've got the SEC saying, Vanderbilt football contributes really nothing. They're not going to win anything, yet they're getting that big check. Next question, Big Ten. What happened with their TV media rights deal? Were they trying to please too many people and ended up basically not pleasing even their own conference? Now, I think the night games in the Big Ten will be pretty fun because, hey, they're used to cold weather and stuff. But how did all this transpire after they were bragging about they had the $1 billion deal?
It's a good question. It's probably a question for Kevin Warren, who's no longer there.
Yeah.
I got posse. No, as I mentioned earlier, there was talk about Washington and Oregon going to the Big Ten to improve the offerings on the West Coast and the Pacific time zone. But the Big Ten and the SEC are better positioned than anybody else out there.
Yeah.
You look at what those conferences are going to be giving their schools in the near future. It just dwarfs everybody else. But not what we were originally sold for sure.
Yeah. And Kevin Warren, what he did back in August of 2020, taking the lead of the Mid-America Conference, an act of Congress got Ohio State in there to be roadkill against Alabama for the national championship that year. But the Pac-12 was even worse. Have they improved much at all from where they were 3 years ago in terms of competency? Because it looks like you've got living brain donors running the Pac-12, at least from San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, George Klivanoff's, he's a good exec. He's got good track record and experience in entertainment, but just stepped into a mess from Larry Scott. Spent on the offices in San Francisco. We're paying ridiculous amounts of rent up there. I think had a $25 million or $50 million overpayment from DirecTV or something and didn't pay it back. Now they're having to pay it back. Complete dysfunction. But I think it seems like the big three at least are on the same page in terms of direction and where to go.
Yeah, because I think the Los Angeles TV market, which is 1 or 2 in the country, could not work out a deal with DirecTV to carry the Pac-12 network. Is that what it was?
Yep.
You really got to work hard at screwing that up, So here's a couple of questions real quick for you. You remember Terry Hogue, defensive back at Georgia? Where was he from? Huntsville, Texas?
Yeah, he was one of the last guys recruited in that class, I believe, back in the early 80s or late 70s.
Yeah, I remember Mike Hubbard was doing his Heisman Trophy campaign at Georgia. Is that one of the best campaigns you've ever seen? I don't know if you were involved. Were you involved with that at all? You weren't even in school yet, were you?
I was 7, boss.
Okay. Okay. I was going to say you were a lot young, but I think back to, what is going on in college football right now. We're talking about all this organization and change. And you think this summer, if you had to guess, Arizona State, Arizona to the Pac-12, Colorado, Utah to the Pac-12, all four of them, or just most likely Colorado and Utah?
I would think if Colorado and Utah go, Arizona and Arizona State go, and then you can look at SMU or San Diego State potentially to the Pac-12.
Yes.
Which I don't know what that really does for you. You're adding UCF and BYU. And then I think the ACC stands pat, the Big Ten stands pat, the SEC stands pat. The ACC, I think the only way they can get out of this grants of rights deal is if 7 schools agree to leave the conference and the league dissolves.
Okay.
You know, can Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami find 3 other schools willing to do it? Is it Boston College, Syracuse, Wake Forest?
Yeah, because I saw the Magnificent Seven, they call them.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Tech, Virginia, North Carolina, and NC State, and then Clemson, Florida State, and Miami. But then, of course, the AD from Florida State came out and said, "Oh, this is all overblown. Everything's okay." Is that kind of like a vote of confidence from the Board of Trustees for a football coach? Next, you're about to be fired.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting what they want for now. I mean, they're getting if they perform and get into the playoff, or if their basketball teams go deep in the NCAA tournament. But, you know, how long is that going to keep them happy is the question.
Yeah, I agree. Mark, look, I know you got to go. We really appreciate you taking time to join us. Let people know how they can follow you. And do you have a new book coming out? I know you've written 13. You've written about the Duck Commander, Uncle Si. But what's next on the agenda?
What's next on the agenda is the U.S. Open in June. That's all I got time for.
All right. Look, thank you so much. Look forward to having you on again.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Have a good weekend.
You too. All right. That is Mark Schlabach, ESPN.com. And, you know, went all over the place today talking about, you know, what's going on in college expansion, which conferences are next on the most likely to have a meltdown, you might want to call it. But the Pac-12 is in serious trouble. And the predictions from Jackie Sherrill, Mark Schlabach said it. They said Nick Saban told him 10 years ago, we're going to have 55 or 60 schools. Just they're all going to play each other. And that's what people want to see. And then again, we're going toward that NFL model. Just as it was predicted a long time ago by some pretty smart people. And, you know, that's why we've got to have a championship, a national championship. Well, we need to. You don't have to. For the group of 5 schools. And as we do this, we start looking around going, okay, what do we need to do to keep fans' interest? Well, if schools, and we'll talk to both Matt Dean and John Hartwell in hour number 2 this morning, you don't want to go into the season knowing you have no possibility of playing for or winning the national championship. I mean, there's not enough Hamm's beer you can drink for that. What are we going to do? We don't want to lose football programs around the country. College football is great for America. NASCAR is great for America. But TV, who owns college football? The fans do. Now, that's a diametrically opposing argument that you can make here. The fans, yes, own college football. TV, the networks, spend a lot of money to get what they want. But that TV money can also make you a hostage, an indentured servant, like it has done with the ACC. I mean, it'll cost a school right now, we're told, $500 million. That's $500 million plus to get out of that grant of rights deal if they were to leave the ACC. I think that message is a shot over the bow to Clemson and Florida State especially. I mean, Miami can can talk all they want about, their tradition and all, but they really have not been relevant in college football for a long time. Their last national championship was 22 years ago. I mean, obviously, they tied with Auburn in '83 for the national championship. They won again in '87, '89, '91, and '01. And I know they played for it multiple times. They lost 14-10 to Penn State when Pete Giotopoulos intercepted a pass late against Vinny Testaverde and Miami in '86. They lost in '92 against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. They've lost a few championships. Hell, in '85 they were a great team, and Tennessee killed them 35-7 in the Sugar Bowl. But really, you got Florida State. They've won national championships in '93, '99, and 2013. In the last 13 seconds, when Kelvin Benjamin outjumped Chris Davis in the end zone in the Rose Bowl for the national championship. So interest, eyeballs, yeah. Interest in college football is huge. But we got 133 Division I football teams out there. How many of them are going to get pushed aside? And Mark was right talking about you could have some rearranging, like when in the ACC. I mean, Duke basketball is great. Coach K is out now. Even at its height, Duke basketball does not come close to making what Alabama football or Georgia football brings in, or any of your top tier SEC programs, or Clemson, or Penn State, Southern Cal, Texas. They just bring in a hell of a lot more money, and people need to think about that. We're looking at a lot of changes coming around here in college football in the next few years, and I think this summer we're going to have some big news, and it may come before June 1st or July 1st. It'll typically come around when they have the media days. You look at the media days in the SEC, that'll be, between July 18th and the 23rd this year. But you're going to start seeing, you're going to start hearing and seeing developments with college football expansion or whatever. But Gary Harris, we just had Mark Schlabach, ESPN.com, on with us, talking about all the reshuffling, realignment possibilities in college football. And Jackie Sherrill was on with us while he was trout fishing on the White River up in Cutter, Arkansas last Friday, catching fish and talking. It was amazing doing both of those at the same time. But, do you see going forward the model just like the NFL, NFC East-West, AFC East-West, 55, 60 teams? Do you see that coming on? And number two, do you possibly see where the SEC, the ACC could even get rid of some of their current members that have been with them because they're saying, hey, you're just, you don't bring anything to the table for football. Everything is football.
Yeah, I think this, Rob, I think everything's on the table,
Yeah.
and so I don't rule anything out at this point because it's all going to be driven by the dollar. It's going to be driven by money and staying ahead of the competition. So if you're a conference that is in a strong position like the SEC or the Big Ten, you want to stay there. And at this point, there was a time, when everybody kind of looked out for each other, I think, as far as athletics. But, it started to change with the CFA in the 80s, and it's just kind of evolved to the point now where, it's the strong survive. And, there's not a lot of concern if you're in one of these power conferences about anybody else outside of the ones that you have a vested interest in. And as you said, maybe even then, if you're one of the schools that are in one of those alignments or conferences or whatever we call them, and you're not pulling your weight, or they perceive that you're not pulling your weight, then you might be in trouble. So, it's hard for me. I think someone that's that like a Mark Schlabach or some of these guys, that's what they spend a lot of time studying all these models, and I don't, to just be honest with you. As we've talked about before, I got a pretty good daily beat of sports. It's hard for me to predict anything, but as I said, I wouldn't rule out anything either, because it's all going to be driven by money, and it's all going to be driven by the desire to stay ahead and stay afloat. So I think everything's on the table going forward.
Yeah, and I think that let's say you have 60 schools in that super conference. There are 131 now. I'm seeing 133 Division I schools. 133. I don't know who the two are that we added since last season. I know James Madison was a new entrant last year, but that's two more, and you can already pretty much predict those two schools that are new. They're not going to probably be in contention for the college football playoff for a long time. I mean, if ever. But I'm thinking here, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I love the game of college football. Maybe we can save it. We're going to talk about it right back after this. Okay, Rob Browne back here. Gary Harris, 149, WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa. Gary, just like you look at all these models, and you look at everything that's out there. College football is about fun, going to the event, seeing your friends. You're back on campus. There's so much. It's so different than pro football. Pro football, let's be honest, we always are. You're going in your tailgate in the parking lot with a bunch of slobs wearing jerseys that come down to their knees, and drinking and eating brats, but you're in a parking lot. There's zero atmosphere. I mean, at an NFL tailgate, that's just what it is. That's what's going to make college better. Having a CFP national championship is great. Then have one for the other schools, I think that would work, no doubt. Kind of like these. But it would be bigger, though, than the NCAA March Madness and the NIT, wouldn't it?
It certainly could happen. And, again, these are just still hypotheticals, Rob.
Yeah.
I agree with what you said about the pageantry of college football, the romance of it, the going back on campus and all of that. But I think that's for our generation, that's certainly the case. But I think for anyone under 30, they didn't really, that's there, but they also have grown up in an era where there's been, first the BCS and now a playoff and constant change. And so, I agree. It's not exactly like pro sports, but it's becoming like pro sports. And, like I said, when anything's driven by money, completely, a lot of the student athletes now are driven by money. The coaches are driven by money. The universities are driven by money. So, let's keep that romance and pageantry. We can. And when they run through the tunnel, man, it's still your school, but let's not kid ourselves. There's not that big a gap between what the colleges and universities are doing and what pro sports is doing. I mean, it's becoming more and more similar every day. And, we're trying to figure out a way to get some type of grasp on this NIL, but for the most part, a player can demand whatever he or she wants to demand. And if somebody's willing to pay it, they can take it. And if, I think we saw with Auburn softball, we had a great year and really good team, but 3 of their best players went into the portal strictly, I think, because they want to pursue NIL opportunities, Rob. Yeah. There's no reason for them not to come back to Auburn, and they may still come back to Auburn, but they also want to go in the portal and see what's available to them financially that Auburn evidently can't provide right now in terms of softball. So it's not just, I know we're focused mainly on football, but the entire college climate is different than it was even 10 years ago. So as far as getting back to your premise, I think at some point you're probably going to see these 50 or 60 schools, as you said, form this major, conference and playoff. And it's going to be a lot like pro sports, fortunately or unfortunately. It's going to be strictly driven by competition and money. And you're going to have athletes who are not necessarily at their colleges or universities with an education in mind. What did Cardell Jones that said, I didn't come here to play school, and I think that's there's more and more athletes that look at it like that. I mean, college is just a stop off to try to get to the pros. And while they're stopping off, they want to make some money. They want to make some money. And, I think they may enjoy playing for a certain school, but if they don't feel like the opportunities at that school, that school is providing can match what they can get somewhere else, many of them are going to go somewhere else. It's just a new world. So I think, as I said earlier, everything's on the table. I think the model that we have when we go to this first year of a 12-team playoff may not be the same model that we have 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Everything's going to constantly be tweaked and going to constantly be looked at. And, who's going to be involved in it or who can stay at that level is all going to depend on, their financial situation.
Yeah, and it just how much pain can you inflict on your fan base to say, hey, you got to keep giving. You're already paying for season tickets, scholarships, all that. Now, let's put all these other sports. Auburn, Alabama, both have 21 different sports. With Title IX, I think the rules are you make a gift, to a school unless it's specific. I think they can take half of it. Let's switch to football. Athlon's college football preview is out. Okay. Alabama has a boatload of preseason players, first, second, third team. Gary, where's the difference here?
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Rob. I all I heard was Athlon's.
Yeah.
And that's better.
Yeah.
Pose
Okay.
that question for me again.
Yeah. Well, Athlon's came out with their college football preview yesterday. I saw it online, which means it'll be in the newsstands. And when you're buying you whatever at the grocery store, you're going to get you an Athlon's to take to the lake or the river or the beach this weekend. And they got first, second, third, and fourth team preseason rosters. Their picks. But nowadays, when you sign a player, remember when you used to sign a kid, you say he's going to break every rushing record in school history, or he'll break every record. Nowadays, the players are almost telling you, don't overwork me in college because I want to save myself for the NFL. That's what I'm seeing. And you just wonder where the next generation of heroes in college football, where are they going to come from? Because these guys nowadays don't give a damn, most of them, about anything but their stats. It's what I call the Kentucky basketball syndrome. I mean,
it's big picture thinking. I mean, and your heroes may come and go quicker than they've come in the past. So if you sign one of these kind of guys that you think is a record breaker, he might have to break it for one season, and then move on. So it's so much different, and but you're still going to have great players in college sports. How long that they stay, how many records can they break? If you have a guy that is a really good college player and just happens to stay at your school for 4 years, he may break records of players that were much more talented than him just because of longevity. So, and I do think you're going to see there's going to be opportunities for guys because of NIL who stay in college because they may be great college players but they don't project as well at the next level as a pro. So, we see that more right now in women's sports, but you can start seeing it in men's sports. So your heroes may be, players that just stay in your program a long time and aren't necessarily looking just to get to the next level. But the uber talented players, let's not kid ourselves. There are some who I think really are going to enjoy the college experience, and there are some who I think are going to look at the big picture and say, "Man, I want to get a degree while I'm here, and I want to savor this." And they're in a financial situation at home, maybe where they don't need money as bad as someone else. And you may still see a guy who really is talented and just says, I like playing college ball. I want to play college ball. But for the most part, you're looking at guys who want to get to college to provide them an opportunity to go to the NFL. And while they're there, they want to make as much money as they can. That's what you're looking at for the most part, Rob. So where will the heroes come from? I still think they'll be there. It's just the way that we define a college football hero is going to be different than it used to be. Listen, even Herschel Walker, who was the first to say, you know what, I'm not playing 4 years. I got an opportunity to go to the USFL and I'm going to take it. He left Georgia after 3 years. But, you used to sign one of these great high school talents. You knew you had them for 4 or 5 years, and they had time to kind of get into the program. And as you said, establish that rapport with the fan base. Now, when you sign, you sign a Herschel Walker now, let's just be honest. You're thinking, he better be on the field from day one, and we better enjoy him while we have him, because if he's as good as we think he is, he's going to be looking to get out of here to go to the NFL as soon as he can. Or if he doesn't get on the field, then he's going to transfer somewhere else. So again, you just have to evolve with the way the game's evolved. And I when people watch me, I don't want anybody to think that I'm anti these changes. I mean, I'm going to go along with them like everybody else, but you and I both, I think we do kind of still long for the era that we grew up with, which was a different time and a different place and different expectations. Having said that, the caliber of play right now is incredible. The athletes that we see every Saturday on the football field is unbelievable. The coaches, are much more sophisticated than they were, 40 or 50 years ago. So it's a great product, and as long as the product is good, people are going to watch. It's just the way that we watch, the way that we tie into the schools that we follow is going to be different than it was 40 or 50 years ago. But obviously, college football and college sports, it still has a huge market. We see it with the TV contracts. We see it with the streaming. We see it with the internet. So fans.
Yeah, Gary, that's the thing about it, is that the fans
Spun out there on me for a second, and the product is different. The performers, if you will, that provide the product, they view things differently too. So it is what it is, and but by the number of talk shows, the number of websites dedicated to covering college sports, the number of games on TV, it's still pretty popular.
Oh, absolutely it is. And I think what the free market will do is you'll see, you might even see this very soon, like the G League in basketball. And I'm not sure if the G League in basketball for the NBA can withstand what the NIL can offer. Because you saw where guys would make maybe $500,000 to go play in the G League right out of high school. Well, NIL, there are universities out there that are going to pay more than $500,000. I mean, I've heard $1 million or $2 million for some of these kids. But I think that the fans, you have an attachment to those players at your school. And we also have just such a sardonic, sarcastic culture that's just prevalent, and people just dismiss everything that is said as, there's an ulterior motive, or, no one believes anything they hear anymore. And all you can do is, what you look at coaches. We don't want to lose coaches getting out of coaching because they hate the portal, and that's what we don't want to have happen. But we could see a developmental league. So like, don't even insult that university by coming there. You're not interested in anything but getting to the NFL. Then that's where I see a developmental league popping up. And then you'll have guys that come to college.
I've long been a proponent of that. I might have said it. We've been a proponent of. Yeah.
And Gary,
I've long been a proponent of a developmental league, and
yeah. Well, Gary, you're breaking up, but Maurice Clarett, 21 years ago at Ohio State, remember, he thought he could go straight to the NFL, and then all this off the field stuff kept him from ever getting to the NFL. And
yeah, you're breaking up on me too. But can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now.
You got me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Rob. Yeah, I've long been a proponent of a developmental league. I've always said there's some young people that just aren't meant to go to college, don't want to go to college. They just have the opportunity to pursue their athletic ability without having to go to college. I think those days are kind of over now because, again, I think that, because athletes can get paid, the ones even that aren't interested in education can do enough probably to stay. And I don't know why we're dropping out so bad, but, I think that the developmental leagues at one time, I think were a great idea. I don't know now that there's a need for them as much anymore because these guys can go to college. And, I just don't hardly ever read or hear about anybody being ineligible anymore academically, and you got guys jumping from school to school to school to school, and yet they just always seem to be eligible. I guess the system has tweaked itself to the point where, even if you're not a great student, you seem to be able to stay eligible. And I'm sure it happens. I'm sure that there are players that aren't academically eligible, but I don't see it very often, Rob. Most every player that signs at a school, like I said, even the ones that go work out somewhere for, in California while their season's going on, I guess they do it online. I think the online aspect of education has changed everything in that somebody can, get on a computer, and whether they do the work or how that works or somebody else does the work or whatever, you seem to be able to stay eligible regardless of your situation. So the need for a developmental league probably isn't as great now as it once was, because I think that the top athletes are using college as their developmental league. So I used to be a huge proponent of that, but now I'm not sure that there's, much of a need for it anymore.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Nobody's ineligible. There's no Prop 48s. There's nothing anymore. And we've got everybody, every recruit they get is the best. He's the top at his position. And you're right about that. Remember the clearinghouse, the NCAA clearinghouse? That was a nightmare. It was like purgatory for a student athlete, but we don't hear about that much anymore. But Gary, I know you're about to go into your show.
There was a time. Yeah, I'll say this real quickly, Rod. There was a time when you signed your school signed a prospect, and if there were academic concerns, you were worried. You were worried about whether or not that player would ever be eligible, be able to remain eligible. Now that doesn't seem to be an issue. They seem to graduate in 3 years. And like I said, online classes have seemed to change everything. All right, Rob, I appreciate it. Sorry we're breaking up today. I don't know what the issue is.
No, it's good. Just remember Dante Jones at Mississippi State, when he took 36 hours that summer, that set the precedent for where we are with these scholars. But Gary, look, man, have a great Memorial Day weekend. Tell people how they can follow you real quick on your show today.
Yeah, at G Harris, at Gary Harris _WVUA for my Twitter. I'm on Facebook, Gary Harris WVUA. You can find me and follow me there on Facebook, Tide109.com and WVUA23.com are websites. Thanks a lot, Rob.
All right, thank you so much. Gary Harris in Tuscaloosa. And hell yeah, we're going to take a break here in just a second. We're going to come back with Ann Camp Lee, the owner of RumbleBoxingGym.com /Midtown Memphis. This is the first of our 3 locations. Just going to let Ann talk about what's going on, introductory offers to join the gym. It is a great workout. We're going to talk about it. But yeah, you see that Ham's Beer sign in the background, folks. It is Memorial Day weekend. Get you a 30 rack, man, $15.98. I mean, it's incredible. But we're going to be right back in just a moment talking some boxing and then the AD angles.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4 City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. And Camp Lee, let's talk about it real quick. Rumble Boxing Gym opened up April 17th in Midtown Memphis. And I know Audrey and I were there on Thursday, April 20th, went to that class. And that is intense. And I love to swim, bike, run, lift weights, do calisthenics, do anything, canoe race, anything, kayak. That is land swimming. That 45-minute workout. Did you know, or I guess the founders of Rumble Boxing Gym know that a prize fight, if it goes the full 15 rounds, is 45 minutes? Because that was a great workout. It's the calisthenics. It's the dumbbells, it's the burpees, the star jacks, the up downs, the push-ups, all that stuff. And you are absolutely getting an incredible workout with some great instructors in a high energy atmosphere that I'm telling you, cost is only an issue in the absence of any added value. This is well worth it. Oh, man. Unmute yourself, Ann. I can't hear you. Okay. And you've got your mute button on. I cannot hear you. Okay. Is that us right here?
Yeah, but she's got her own.
Yeah. You've got your mute button on. Unmute yourself so I can hear you. It's down there by the camera. Okay. We'll try to do this thing with Ann. If we can, talking about RumbleBoxingGym.com /Midtown Memphis. Ann, can you hear me now? Well, hopefully she'll come back here with us in just a second. But folks, go to the website, and if Ann can work this out, we're going to talk to her for just a couple of minutes. But you go in there, the classes, they start at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. It's open every day. You're going to go in there and get – I'm trying to compare it. It's not going in there and just lifting weights and staring at yourself in the mirror. This is going in there and getting a full body workout. You're going to use every muscle in your body. I'm telling you right now. She's saying she's not on mute. If we can try to get her to come back in, we'll do this. Okay, try again. And it is, hopefully it's going to be, we'll be able to work this out. John Hartwell is on with us right now. John looks like he is still down on 30A in the background there. I can see the landscape down there. I know that area. I know that area well. And yeah, and come back on here if you can with us. And can you hear us now? Yeah. And are you better now? Are you there, Ann? Okay. Ann, can you hear us? Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about rumbleboxinggym.com before we go to John Hartwell. But if people are interested in joining right now, how do they do it, and what are the costs, and what do they get? She is not able to hear anything that we are saying, Audrey. We'll try it again. Yeah, I don't know what it is that's on your end. She must have had herself muted, and we'll try it again. But Rumble Boxing Gym, folks, check them out, and we'll get her back on there again, possibly later in the show. John, you had the last weekend the Sun Belt Conference meetings down in Destin. What was the takeaway from all the people, all the smart people in one room?
Well, I don't know if I can be included in that group, but yeah, we had 5 days of pretty productive meetings, and I think I'd mentioned this last week when I was visiting. To me, probably the best takeaway is I feel more encouraged about the direction of the NCAA than I have in a long, long time. I think, President Charlie Baker is a breath of fresh air and an injection, a much needed injection of real world common sense for the NCAA. And I think, there are some great opportunities ahead. I mean, some of the headlines this week is, you see proposed legislation, proposed bills out there in Congress. They've got a ways to go, and there's still a couple of versions of those. Senator Tuberville has been very active in those, but there's at least movement. There's at least something out there that we can grab onto. I mean, there's a long way to go. There's a lot of details, and as is always said, the devil is in the details, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Some things going on in our league, and as we've talked about, a lot of excitement around the Sun Belt, because with the transition out of Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston to the Big 12, if you take those out for the even looking back at the 2022 year, the Sun Belt Conference would be the top group of 5 conference there is. And not only does that give you bragging rights and some promotional opportunities, but it means dollars to the bottom line too. So those things are really encouraging.
Yeah. Well, Matt Dean's on here with us right now. And, last Friday after you were on, Jackie Sherrill joined us from Cutter, Arkansas on the White River. He was in his boat with his guide and his son trout fishing, caught some beautiful brown trout while he was on the show with us. And so that's the first fish that anyone's ever caught on the show. But he talked about going forward, a model like the NFL, AFC, NFC, East, West. And then we also talked about for the other schools, group of 5 and all the other schools have a chance to compete for a national championship. He said, absolutely. It's a great idea. He said, because it would mean just as much to them as it would to the Power 5 schools that are playing for the CFP. And I think we need to do that. And I don't know, John, if you heard about it, or Matt, if there's talk about it, but we better be in the planning stages right now, because I think that day is coming here very soon.
Yeah, I understand the theory. Here's where I think that's maybe a little bit of a pipe dream. I certainly understand it, and the potential excitement around a second championship. But I really feel like that and that number may fluctuate a little bit, but the current 131 schools in FBS are going to stay together, and the reason that they stay together would be exactly the same reason that they split apart, and it's because of the money. When you look at the dollars that are going to be generated, fast forwarding 2 years when there are 12 teams in the CFP playoff. One, it's going to guarantee at least one seat at the table, for the group of 5, which that's, very encouraging there. But also when you look at the financial distribution from what it currently is, that number likely doubles, if not increases even more than that. So, to be a part of that is going to be really important. And I'm not sure, if you carved off, let's just say, the group of 5, how do you then carve off a portion of the money? That would be the biggest thing there. And, while you don't see it as often as you do in basketball in March Madness, a San Diego State making it to the Final Four, there is now at least that opportunity in the playoff system, for a group of 5 team to whether that's advance to, to the second round or to the semifinals, there's that opportunity there. So I think the FBS for now are going to stay put and stay, with one championship.
Okay. I mean, and I like it. And I know, John, I saw yesterday, Athlons in their preview came out 133 Division I. And I'm like, now, last year was 131 with James Madison coming on board. Is Incarnate Word now Division I?
They are not football.
Okay. I didn't think so.
Yeah. I think there's 1 or 2 others that are in transition. And in fact, James Madison they will be going into year 2, and obviously a member of our league, but they'll be going into year 2 of their transition. And they appealed to the NCAA to only have to be in that transition 1 year where they're not available for postseason, except in one category. And we talked about this in our meetings. If there are not enough teams with at least 6 wins, then if James Madison has 6 wins, they would go before a 5-7, another, FBS team that's 5-7 to a bowl game.
Okay. All right, let's try it again. And we're going to try it again with you right now. I think you're on your laptop. You can hear us. Say hello, rumbleboxinggym.com in Memphis. Tell people about what's going on there at the gym here in a couple of minutes and how they can sign up right now.
Okay. Can we have a test? Can you hear me?
That's good. Yeah. Gooper said. Hey, look, let's, how many times has someone come in there and says, let's get ready to rumble? I bet that gets old, kind of like hump day on Wednesday. But talk real quick. John's a competitive athlete, played at basketball at the Citadel, athletic director at University of Louisiana Monroe. Matt Dean, coach and associate AD over at Rhodes College. You are an attorney in one of your lives, and you also are opening the first of 3 of these gyms. Guys, I'm telling you, it's in Midtown Memphis. It is absolutely one of the coolest experiences in a workout, and you want to get a warrior ethos and team building and stuff like that. I love this, but tell people about it as only the owner, whose name is at the bottom of the checks, can say it.
Okay. First of all, I played college sports too. I played soccer for Vanderbilt. So we're all in the same camp. But so Rumble is it's exploding all over the country. It started in New York, and it started with a very big box of 10,000 square feet. But now we've narrowed it down to 3,400 square feet. So we've got like 24 boxing bags on one side and 24 weight benches on the other side with weights underneath. And you spend half of your time on the bags and half of your time on the benches. And you've got an instructor between you that's instructing both sides of the room. And we've got projectors telling you what to do. It's totally dark. We've got cool like dance club lights and music. Workouts are different every single day, and it's just extremely engaging. You're in the zone. You just are, punching away in the dark. Nobody can see you. So you can just, go as hard or as easy as you want. So it actually appeals to a lot of different types of people that are new to exercise and people that are super athletes too. So it's great. We've been open for about a month, and we've got tons of interest. We've got like 3,000 prospects that are asking if they can, find out more. And then we've got about, close to 200 members. We're going to have a big grand opening on June 10th. So we're going to have like all kinds of stuff there, radio, remote, a different radio channel, Rob. Aaron Austin's coming that day.
Right.
Food trucks and membership deals, all kinds of stuff like that. But it truly is an incredible workout. We've got a guy that lost 12 pounds in a week. he's coming 3 times
Sign
a day.
me up.
He's coming 3 times a day. He really is determined to lose weight, and he's doing it. And, another girl's come 25 times, and we've only been open 30 days. So it's addictive and very effective.
Yeah, it is. And real quick, what are the costs for people if they want to join, and what's the website address again that they can join?
Well, first on Instagram, it's Rumble Boxing Midtown Memphis, and all of our links are on there. And then we've got a website, rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis. The rate for unlimited, as many classes as you want to take 3 times a day, it's $149 a month. And and then we're selling BOGOs, so you can buy one, get one free for $23. That's a really good deal. So you can try it out and see if you like it. We've got some other packages and things like that too. And you can buy your gear from us for $99.
Hell, it is well worth it. And look, let's do it again. And next time, let's do it on your laptop again.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. We got aliens out there. I think it's Al Qaeda on the line today, whatever like that. But and thanks so much. And we will be in touch with you. And let's do it again in a couple of weeks. Okay.
Okay, John and Matt, it was great meeting y'all.
Thanks, Ann. Thank you. Well, we're going to get ready to rumble boxing gym. And I'm going to tell you what, man, guy lost 12 pounds in a week. Usually you got to get some, jungle rot disease or something to lose that kind of weight that fast. But I'm telling you, I've been to the classes, man. It is awesome. You put the gloves on, and it is that 45 minutes. It's like hooking up to a generator. You're just like the instructors. It's you got these instructors, man. That girl, she was tough, man. I mean it wasn't, Gunnery Sergeant Hartman up there. I can assure you. These are competitive people, and they all know my daughter Hallie because she and her husband Brooks are into this elite exercise training and stuff. But going back, guys, we're talking about college athletics and all. I'm glad to hear you say that, John, because we hear all these models, Matt, about what's happening in college athletics. But we need to save college sports because they're great for America, Matt. How are we going to do it?
Well, good to see you guys, John. It's been a while. Hope you're doing well. I know you've been busy with conference stuff. I understand that. It's that time of year. But John hit it on the head. Going to the model that Coach Sherrill talked to us last week about, the reality is if they do go to a 54 NFL model, 50 teams, FBS, that's down the road. But everything's driven by money. And right now with the group of 5 having a seat at the table in the 12-team playoff, you're going to see one of these teams sneak into the Final Four one day. I really believe that. I'm not sure how soon, but I do think it's coming. And then really from where I've coached my whole career, we've always had a model for a championship. However, people don't realize that it's been funded historically. All NCAA Division III championships has been funded by the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Wow. So for us to be successful, we need the bigger schools to be successful. And I think the group of 5 has done so well recently. And I think there's no reason to think it's not going to. And John touched on this. I feel more confident with the leadership up top. And I'm not trying to take shots at prior leadership, but like anything in life, sometimes you need to change. And I think the leadership with the former Governor Baker coming in, I think it's really big for the association.
Yeah. Hold those thoughts, Matt, because I'm going to get back. I want you and John, I'm going to put the ball in y'all's hands. I've been talking too much because y'all are the AD, the administrator guys. We'll be right back, the AD angle. All right, gotta love that bump music in the commercial. Hey, it's like a cheap spaghetti western, man. I just, it's from the good, the bad, and the ugly. But man, that is some good. The one thing about the world of podcast and radio is the rights on the music, man. Audrey is a bumpologist. Normally, we've got Led Zeppelin, Skinner, we've got some Hank Jr., Willie Nelson, Charlie Daniels. We'll have some blues. I mean, we will just bounce all over the place. Ernest Tubbs. I like it all, man. All right, now.
Hey, Rob, don't leave Molly Hatchet out of your Southern Fried Rock agenda.
Flirting with disaster, man. Oh my God. I remember, was it 96.1 in Atlanta? Oh my God, they played that song every 15 minutes. But the cool thing about what's happening is both of y'all are very smart. And Matt, you just talked about what the big schools do, funding down to D2 and D3. I say this every show, and I don't say it just to say it, but your athletes that come from anywhere, Division 1, 2, 3, Power 5, Group of 5, they're disciplined people. When the virus came out 3 years ago, there were all these apocalyptic predictions. Oh, how can we play football? These guys will be, there's no way. And I said, they're the most disciplined athletes and people in the world. John, your daily encounters with these people is they're not ordinary, are they?
No, I mean, it's why, student athletes are sought after by, employers out there. Yeah. And you can just go down the list, and it's, knowing how to deal with adversity, picking yourself up and dusting off when you have a setback, time management, team building skills, all of those things that make student athletes successful are going to help them in the business world. And again, as we've been talking about the NCAA, one of the things I think that was done very well under the previous administration was the whole commercial pitch or marketing pitch about, so many student athletes going professional. And they weren't talking about going professional in terms of the NBA or WNBA or NFL. They were talking about, what they do out there in the professional world. And those skills, those are the things that will, endure through time and endear employers or potential employers to student athletes. Are those qualities that they learn and they hone while being a student athlete?
Well, I know that when I was at Regions Morgan Keegan, which is now Raymond James, a big part of the model for building that company was hiring student athletes. And Matt, you've got a son that's a financial advisor. Look at his background. You got another son who's on Dan Lanning's staff at Oregon. I think about it, getting up in the morning swimming at 5:15, 5:30. And, these kids that are out there swimming, they're doing it voluntarily. Maybe their parents have prodded them a little bit, but you think a person like that's going to complain if they got to come in and work early on a Saturday morning? Hell, when I got in the bond business, they made us come in on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And they put goals and stuff for us to shoot for. I love that. I thrive in Matt, look at your student athletes at Rhodes, what he's got at Louisiana Monroe. These are the people that are going to be running America and running the world.
Well, John's right. And I'll give you another one that a lot of people don't think of. Just the postgraduate recommendations I've written over the years. I can't tell you how people have come back to me and say, well, it mattered that your head coach would talk so glowing about you, and not just a reference to winning basketball games, but how you're going to excel in a graduate setting and in the game of life. And I think John hit it on the head. That's why we're in this business, is because our student athletes are phenomenal. Our day-to-day interactions, there's nothing like it. When you see them compete on the field, I was up in Geneva, New York last weekend with our lacrosse team in the NCAA tournament. We flew into Buffalo, New York, then busted and we played William Smith. We beat the Merchant Marine Academy on Saturday and lost to William Smith, who's now in the Final Four. But just to have an opportunity, people slight the old Roosevelt quote, but it's about that person in the arena that competes. And when you hire that person for your corporation, you're getting a real holistic person that's not going to get flustered the first time something doesn't go right. And that's what you want as an employer.
Well, I will say this, military people, same thing.
Yeah.
You get somebody that was an Army Ranger or Delta Force, people are going to gobble him up for security, for, cyber security. I got the best website guy in the world, and his background is incredible. He's incredible. John, that's why it is so damn important. Paramount above everything else is that we make college sports strong. And I get so mad when I hear people pushing this narrative. 18-year-olds, God bless America, don't run the world. They do what they're told. That's the way I was raised. And I'm telling you, we cannot allow this narrative that these athletes are just put upon and preyed upon to run wild. And, your fans are already supporting you with NIL on top of that. I mean, when is too much going to be too much?
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm hopeful with the proposed legislation that's floating around out there in Congress right now is some type of parameters on NIL. I mean, I think we would all be in agreement that free trade is a good thing.
Yeah.
But when you've got, student athletes who are making seven figures for literally hitting a retweet or a like or something like that, I mean, that's not the real world. It's not. And there has to be some parameters around that. Because and the NCAA has even said this. We had an NCAA rep who was, at our meeting last week, who talked about, the fair market value of NIL. That phrase has been cast out the window. There really is not such a thing. Their version of fair market value is whatever somebody will pay. And as we all know, and I'll go back to your foghorn leghorn analogy,
Yes,
Rob.
sir.
By the way, you've got the Hams beer neon back there now. You need you need a bobblehead foghorn leghorn back there on the bookshelf as well, and you'll have all of your analogies taken care of. But anyway,
I will put one this weekend on the Spring River. I'm gonna find me.
Nice. But anyway, the whole fair market value thing is kind of going out the window. So if this proposed legislation, one, if it can get through, and two, if it can put some type of guardrails out there to say, hey, here is what the limitation of an individual name, image, and likeness deal may do. I think that gives us hope in those terms, because again, and you guys, I think I may have mentioned this before, the attorneys are winning at every corner in this deal.
Yeah.
And so what's to say if this whole deal goes unchecked, let's fast forward 5 years, take a look in our crystal ball, and you're going to have some former student athletes out there filing a suit and say, well, gosh, I was making, $300,000-$400,000 a year when I was a college student athlete in NIL deals. And, oh no, I had to go to the real world and I was only making, $75,000 or $100,000 a year. This system has wronged me. And I promise you, somewhere out there, no knock on attorneys out there, because there's a whole bunch of great ones out there, but some attorney will take that case and go run with it against the NCAA.
Yeah. Matt, do you foresee a class action suit at some university out there in America where a pre-med student or a pre-law student says, well, by God, I want to be able to practice medicine. I'm a sophomore and I got a straight A 4.0 average. That football guy, he barely even goes to class and he's getting $500,000 a year. But they used my likeness on a brochure about the school of nursing or whatever like that. I should be rewarded for that. Or, damn it, my picture was on the front page of the newspaper at the game. They used my likeness. I mean, that's, you know what? You fight fire with fire.
Well, I think John's always, cutting edge right on most of these things. And I do think this system will correct itself and start to correct itself already. You're going to see, at first we're seeing these big deals. You're going to see things come back to the center a little bit. And then you're going to see more and more disgruntled athletes, which leads to what John's talking about. And quite frankly, that's why you still have to base everything on education. If you can still, as a recruiter, convince these young men to make sure that they're at least, to get their degree or come back and get their degree, it gives them a chance. Women too. The thing about the NIL that's really been interesting, just listening to my son at a Power 5 institution, is you have some staffs right now that are really excelling. Now, you could also argue, John, they're excelling because they have, a funded situation. And I get that. But the downside of it is these staffs are getting no breaks at all. I know people are working hard everywhere across America. Yeah. I mean, they have increased the workload phenomenally, and there's never a break for these staffs. And at some point, that takes a toll, and you're seeing coaches get out of it earlier. Does it mean we're not going to have the lengthy careers we've had in the past in the coaching world? I don't know.
Yeah, or in some of those cases too. And I don't want to pick on any in particular school, but a school that may now have 10 or 12 or 14 analysts may go to 25 analysts, and 10, those additional 10 or 12 are doing nothing but monitoring the transfer portal or going and I've heard some schools now actually have analysts who are studying game film of teams that they do not play, that strictly are looking at the potential opportunity of identifying, hey, here are these 10 kids at this school who, if any of these 10 go in the portal, we have an interest in them. And that, again, that's the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah, it is. And I talked to a young kid yesterday. It's a friend of mine's son who's interning for a professional sports franchise this summer. And he said they even have people now who, just like what you said, their job is to look out there and find disgruntled fans whose seat was too hard or the cushion wasn't big enough for their fat ass to sit on. I don't know what it was, but that's what you've got. And I'm going to tell you what, you look at the team photos now, okay? College football teams. A lot of them, there's more, staff than there are players. You can coddle people too much. I love my kids and I know myself. I always struggle tying when I'm trout fishing, tying the knot. You loop it through 8 times, pull that hitch knot. But if I don't do it myself and someone else does it for me every time, I'm never going to learn. I think what we're setting kids up for, if you got a $500,000 NIL deal when you came in at 18 years old and you don't make it to the next level, to the NFL, I guarantee you your first job coming out of college, you're not going to be making anywhere close to $500,000. I remember my first job in TV. I cashed my checks at the liquor store, man. I didn't want anybody to know how little I made.
Did you cash it or you just swapped it out for product?
That's just what I got that line from a man that was an equity analyst at where I used to work, one of the chief strategy guys. He said, man, back when the Dow went down 47% in 73 and 74, he goes, I made so little money. I used to stop at the damn liquor store. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want my wife to know what I was making. I digress, though. Matt, you would not know that, you being Howard Hughes' nephew. Come on.
Yeah, I was definitely not born on third base, guys. I want to let you know that for a fact. I was I wasn't even in the dugout. I was somewhere in the left field bullpen, okay? for me to get to the top of the org chart, that's when my book's coming out here soon, Rob. I'm going to promote it on your show here.
Absolutely.
But getting back to the NIL for a second, I want to ask John this because, I've seen Bryce Young in a Dr. Pepper commercial.
Yeah.
I know what the Ohio States of the world are doing. I'm not naive. But the thing that's really interesting about NIL, I think there's such a slim portion of those guys you're talking about with the big money. I know for a fact from some group of 5 schools, one of the big concerns is a booster invests money in a kid, and then that kid transfers. That's where a lot of the angst is coming from.
Yes.
Is that money just goes with the kid. It's not, and the booster is highly upset because the kid didn't really perform to the level they thought they were going to do at institution 1 in the first place, and now he's gone. And it's very problematic, and that's why there has to be legislation. And John, another point, you're right about these analysts, and if I have money to do it, why wouldn't I? But I'm looking at your situation, John. I'm pretty sure that you don't have 25 damn analysts in your football program. And that's the problem. It's an equity question, right? It's just not fair unless there's a cap on certain things you can and cannot do.
Yeah, it is. And from the NIL perspective, and again, when we had an NCAA rep last week, and you're seeing more and more about this, there is a day coming where, despite it technically not flowing through the institution, Title IX is going to play a part in NIL. I think sooner than later. I was reading an article this morning that says, over 85% of dollars that flow through these collectives are going to male student athletes.
Right.
I was surprised that number was actually not a little bit higher than that. But that day is coming. But you look at some of these institutions, and you're right. There's still a vast majority of group of 5 student athletes, especially in Olympic sports, who don't have any NIL deals. But then you read the other day, Texas Tech saying every baseball player on their roster is going to have at least $10,000 in NIL deals. I mean, here's Matt, one of the things.
John, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. I want to keep developing this story because, and you hit on 2 things. We're going to pick them back up. Matt Dean, John Hartwell, Rob Browne, right back after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right. Clark Kent back here with you. Went in there in the kitchen to get a sandwich, but you were talking about Title IX is going to pop up here likely. And you were saying something else before the break, John. Keep going because it's opening up some eyes to a lot of people.
Yeah. You look at Texas Tech baseball announcing that every kid's going to have, at least a 6-figure deal in NIL money. And that's where the challenges are coming because, NIL, one of the big things that the NCAA has not wavered on is that it cannot, again, I say what the policy is, I don't say what the real life application is, but it cannot be used as a recruiting inducement. So in other words, NIL is not even supposed to come on the radar screen until after kids are admitted to school or who have started to school. but that's clearly not what's happening in real practice right now. And I will say this: you've got student athletes, and we talked about this again in our meetings last week. You've got institutions being clever in how they go about this, because you may not have coaches talking about it, but you have student athletes at those institutions calling, maybe prospective student athletes at those schools and saying, hey, you come here, here's what I'm getting. And so that's not a coach using it as a recruiting inducement, but it's student athletes doing it. And so, just as there has been since the beginning of time in college athletics, people are finding creative ways around it. But I do think, again, going back to the proposed legislation out there, if there can at least be some guardrails put on there, inevitably people are going to get around those guardrails. But if there can be some guardrails put out there, I think it's going to help everyone long term. But and I'll shut up here in just a second. The other thing, and we've been talking about this since the beginning of NIL, you continue to hear more and more about the cannibalization of donors' resources. That, hey, they may have been given $100,000 a year to see improvements that now has been redirected to NIL collectives that, especially in today's economy, the pot is just not endless for 99.99% of the people out there.
Yeah. And there you go. Again, my perspective, think about on the job market. We all remember, again, our first job out of college. You didn't get a raise or even think of asking for a raise until you had done something. Now, I mean, I've been in the commission business since May of '91. I eat what I kill. I like that, though. I mean, I take phone calls at 5 a.m. I mean, in a heartbeat. I like that. But there's your problem. Matt, you talked about it. Frank Duffy reminds us a lot. 3 of his LSU friends that own businesses in Louisiana did 3 NIL deals with 3 separate LSU players. By the time they got to the bowl game, all 3 of those guys were AWOL.
Yeah.
Not present. They quit on them, and they took that money. The real world, you can't do that. Now, Tommy Tuberville says this a lot, but we're supposed to be teaching these young men and women about the lessons of life. And who who pushed and signed Title IX in 1972? Richard Nixon, Richard Milhouse Nixon, a Quaker, the most popular president in American history. He won 49 states to 1. George McGovern, I'm not sure he won his own family, but it was 49 to 1. He pushed that through. Are the women going to save us? Because people will say, well, I'm not giving, man, I don't want half my money to go. Look, I got 2 of each. But Matt, you better take women's sports just as important as men's. I mean, no, as far as money, we know the men make more, but John's on to something. Carry on.
Well, first of all, Rob, I got to give you credit. When I woke up this morning, I did not think we would talk about Richard Nixon on this show. So you are just one of the best hosts I've ever been around. Secondly, what John was referring to, and he's so spot on because he's a finance guy, is in the budgeting process, we all talk about there's one pie, right? Well, in this whole NIL deal, if I'm a booster, I'm giving you amount of money. Now I'm directing it towards your roster. I'm not directing it towards your deferred maintenance plan or whatever kind of budgetary improvements you were going to use that money for. That pie is now shrinking, Rob, and that's a different problem for ADs. A lot of people don't know. I was only in John's role as an AD for 3 years. But one of the things I learned too, people think, oh, it's the greatest job ever. You just show up and watch games. John's an extension of the human resource staff. It's an HR job. John's either hiring quality coaches, determining whether or not he's going to keep a coach, and sometimes getting pressure from that booster who gave him a big piece of pie to get rid of the coach. So what is going on now is the NIL is really teetering with equity. And what you talked about, Rob, is down the road, if that number is 85% and it comes out and we go back to the original thought of NIL. It was not supposed to be recruiting inducement. If enforcement people now are coming after you in that, by the way, John, I don't know how they find all this stuff, but it was messy enough before we had NIL. It's going to be even messier now. I think college sports are stronger than ever. I really believe that. I just think they're messier than ever. And we need someone that can fix the messiness and get the equity bar to go more towards the center. And that's not me, by the way. That's not me.
That reminded me there, Matt, your comments, and they're spot on. The other important component of the legislation, not only about the guardrails, about the dollar amount, but making sure that there are some type of parameters around those folks who call themselves NIL agents. Because right now there's no regulation of those agents like there is of, professional athlete agents which is a pretty rigorous, process you have to go through to be certified. And right now anybody can call themselves an NIL agent. And some of these, quite frankly, you talk about these 6 and 7 figure deals that some of these student athletes have. They're not rampant, but there's quite a few of them, and there's no regulation right now. I mean, there are some of these street agents out there who are taking 25% of what those kids get out of that, when in comparison to somebody who's a professional athlete or an agent for a college coach, they're getting 3, 4, 5%. So it is significantly higher, and a lot of these kids or their families don't know any better. And so I think that's an important part of the proposed legislation as well, because again, you've got some of these kids who, because of their athletic ability, because of their marketability, and quite frankly, their projected earnings going forward, people are preying upon them. And in some cases, they don't have a family group or an advisor or anybody else to steer them away from those perils.
Yeah, and they're just basically just pimps is what they are. They're runners. You got to worry about them that are coming in there. I had a guy tell me about a professional athlete that he represented and the challenges that you deal with as an agent. He said at the bottom of each page, it was in parentheses, 4%. And so his client went through page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. And he said, man, you're charging me 16%. And he goes, no, I'm just charging you 4. It's just at the bottom of each page. He goes, thank God he didn't read through the 20 pages of the contract. It would have been, I'm getting 80 and you're getting 20. But you talk about financial literacy. That's the thing we need to be teaching. And both of y'all, you know what I'm talking about, understanding the value of money. If you don't put a value on anything, you'll know the value of nothing.
Well, John, I have a question for you, because we've even done this a little bit at Rhodes. We used Mogul as a platform for our NIL process. I know we're Division III, but the thing that concerned me, even in our conversations, is I just want to make sure that student athletes understand the tax liability and the education that comes from some of these deals they get. Do you assign someone in your staff to kind of educate any of your athletes that are going through this process, or how does that work at your level?
Well, we do, and we use Open Doors as our platform for NIL, and they do that some as well. But here's the problem: if kids, and this is happening left and right, if kids aren't reporting these deals or running these deals through that platform or reporting them to the compliance folks, then you don't know who has deals and who doesn't. So I will say a lot of the, again, agents for NIL, claim that they're going to do withholdings and help them do their taxes and stuff like that, some of which are. But I think, without regulation, you don't know that everybody out there is doing that. But again, that's a key component. I mean, and again, if it's a $500 deal, it doesn't have much, if any, tax consequence. But if it's a $100,000 deal and they go through the year bebopping along and, hey, I don't know anything about, quarterly withholdings or anything like that. When they come, next April, and they haven't filed, it may not hit them there, but at some point it's going to hit them because whoever is providing that $100,000 obviously is going to report that to the IRS. So at some point, the tax man is going to come calling, and not only will it be what hasn't been paid, but it'll be penalties and interest and everything else on top of that. So that's going to be a significant issue.
Well, one thing that we've already heard a couple of horror stories of some kids that made a comment, why do I have to pay taxes on money I've already spent? Like, wow. You're talking right there, a certified living brain donor. Now, our good friend Foghorn Leghorn, I say here, I've been sponsoring this school here for 25 years. I give you $1 million a year, and I'm paying that quarterback $500,000 a year, and you sat him because he doesn't go to class. If he don't start Saturday, I'm pulling all my support. Wait till that happens, folks.
But Rob, in fairness,
that man.
Rob, in fairness of what you just said, a lot of these kids don't come from backgrounds where tax liabilities are talk at the dinner table, if they even have a dinner table. Okay, so they're going somewhere. This is real attractive. They don't know what's going on, and and John's right. In our NIL platform, all the tax liability and the compliance is built in, and therefore we get a report every time a student gets a Instagram deal or whatever they're doing. That's not my area right now. But the kids that get some decent deals, they need someone because they're not getting that usually from home. That's my whole point.
Yeah. And John, again, you having a background with E&Y for 4 years in public accounting. I mean, I've created a monster in my son Wilson up in Charlotte. I mean, he's sending me research reports at midnight, and I'm like, man, we need to start our own fund. He's really good, but man, my kids grew up with that at the dinner table every night, talking about money, taxes, stock market, and all. Yeah, you're right. It's financial literacy, and John, who better than both of y'all to spearhead this? Is it being pushed really hard? I mean, on a national level, because wait till we have the first player. Because nobody's academically ineligible anymore, okay? There's no more Jeffersons from Fast Times at Ridgemont High School. I didn't know he went to school here. I thought he just flew in for the games. There's no more Prop 48s. There's no more anything. I don't see it anymore. But somebody's going to be held out ineligible for a game because they've got problems with taxes. It's coming.
Yeah, and that is another component of the proposed legislation is financial literacy training for the student athletes. And to me, that's something, and we do that as a part of our life skills programs for our student athletes, because whether you've got NIL or not, and regardless of whether you're an accounting major or a philosophy major or, general studies, whatever it may be, financial literacy is going to be something that's going to serve these student athletes for the rest of their lives. So that's something we're trying to do across the board. And then in the proposed legislation, there's verbiage about that in there as well too. But let me go back real quick, if I can, for a minute, Rob, to your point about academic eligibility, because I will say this: what a lot of people don't realize is the whole APR, and that was a buzzword for a while there. Academic performance rating is going to rear its head again. It was the pause button was hit for a period of 3 years by the NCAA in wake of COVID about APR and the penalties that are imposed there. That is going away, so it won't affect anybody's play or number of scholarships or anything, or recruiting opportunities for the 23-24 academic year. But starting next academic year, 24-25, those penalties are going to come back into play, including potential ban from postseason appearances. Now, when you say, a team can't appear in postseason because they have below a 930 4-year average of APR which again, I won't go into all the details because this could take forever, but you have two components of that. You have academic standing, you have eligibility, and you have retention. And again, that whole retention deal with the transfer portal brings a whole nother component into that. So if you're below the 930 4-year weighted average, you are likely not, you're going to have a postseason exemption, which, in football includes bowl games. In most conferences, that also includes being eligible to play in a conference championship game or in a postseason. SEC and Sun Belt baseball tournaments are going on right now. The ability to participate in that. So that's been forgotten in a lot of people's minds. But I'm telling you, as we fast forward to a year from now, you're going to have schools who are going to be facing the upcoming year where they can't compete in postseason play.
So we've forgotten about it. This has been John and Matt. We're going to get into this more next week because, wow, that's something everybody has forgotten about. And it's accountability. So all these guys coming and going in the portal, it's going to change. Boy, we're about to go into an unbelievable show, man. John, thank you so much for taking time to join us. John Hartwell, Athletic Director, University of Louisiana Monroe. Matt Dean, Associate AD, longtime coach, Rhodes College in Memphis. Gary Harris was on with us earlier, as well as Mark Schlabach, ESPN.com. Folks, hey, man, we're going to take off a few days. We'll be back with you Tuesday morning, bright and early. Got a new guest joining us covering the South Carolina Gamecocks. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Remember what it's for. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help people every chance you get. Don't ever miss an opportunity to thank the people who've helped you get where you are, and always give back. It's voluntary, but do it. Foghorn says we're out of here. Have fun at the beach, John. And you too, Matt. We'll be back Tuesday morning. We are out of here.